Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining me this evening on this live broadcast. I'll be hanging out with you guys and talking about a movie that I saw the other night, which I think wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be. Now, I am a lover of bad movies, so I guess you could say that was a bit of a disappointment in a sense, but I watched Shadow in the Cloud, which I think some people are going to be you know, maybe judging with before they actually watch it. But now this was not a great movie by any stretch. But like I said, it actually was a better movie than I was expecting. So I'll give you a couple of my thoughts about the movie. And then a little bit later on, we'll see if we can get some people in the stream. And if not, we'll go over some campaigns and just kind of, spend a bit of time hanging out. I do plan on doing movie Mondays. So whether it's an old movie or a new movie, whether it's something I just watched on my own or whether it's something I watched with a group of people over the weekend, we're going to do a movie review and just kind of get back to, just an enjoyment and love of movies that I've had my entire life. And, I like talking about movies with people. So hopefully I can make that a regular thing each week for all you guys. And of course, if we can get more people involved, that'll be a lot of fun too. So what we're talking about is the movie Shadow in the Cloud. Now, I don't know if anybody was aware of this movie. There was a trailer a while back. And it kind of seemed pretty lackluster. I wasn't that excited to see it. The selling point would probably be Hit Girl herself, Chloe Moretz, as the lead in the movie. And before, I actually saw the movie, I just thought it was going to be some sort of woke garbage. But it actually turned out to be pretty decent. Now, the writer of the movie is Max Landis, who he's done a few other things I've liked. He did Chronicle and he did the Netflix movie Bright, which probably a lot of people have seen. Bright, I didn't like as much as Chronicle, but I thought Chronicle was pretty good for kind of a handheld shaky cam, almost like a reality TV look at superheroes. And it kind of got me to thinking as well when I saw this movie, Shadow in the Cloud, can a movie be a comic book movie if it's not based on a comic? And, that's something that this film actually made me think. It has a lot of influences on it that you can tell. It has a lot of, it's like a lot of modern movies where it's kind of a mashup of a lot of different concepts. Maybe struggles a little bit to find its footing in terms of what type of movie it's trying to be. I really was not expecting some of the horror elements in this movie. So we'll kind of just go over some of the, some of the positives, some of the negatives, and maybe some of the neutral parts of this movie. I am going to try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible because I know the movie just came out like this week or a couple days ago. So there's probably not a lot of people that have seen it. If, I get some views on this video and people are interested, I might end up doing a spoiler review maybe a week from now. But for now, I'm not going to really get into any details. Now, when I say it's not a spoiler review, like some people consider anything a spoiler. So to me, I will not discuss any kind of twists. I will not discuss the ending of the movie per se. I won't get into anything that adds to the enjoyment of the movie when you're seeing it for the very first time. But, basic concepts, things that you would see in the trailer, stuff. If it's come through in the trailer at some point, then I don't think that's a spoiler to get into some of that stuff. But like anything, take it with a grain of salt. If you don't want to know anything about this movie, then just step away now and come back later once you've watched the movie. Or if you're like me, like I honestly don't really care about spoilers that much. Obviously, if the whole movie is ruined, then I usually don't like that. But for the most part, I don't mind learning some of the smaller details about the movie and stuff. So I guess we'll kind of just jump right into it here, and I can bring up some banners here that go into it. So here I'll kind of pose that question. Maybe if we get a few guests in here a little later on, we can pose this question to everybody, or I'll try to answer it, at least myself. And just so you guys know, like I said, this is a non-spoiler review. Just in general, like the movie itself it looks good. It looks like they've actually spent some money on it. I believe it's just going straight to streaming, which now seems to be, the normal thing now that a lot of movie theaters, I think only about 30 or 40% of the movie theaters across North America are actually still open. So I could have actually seen this movie running in the theaters. It doesn't look like a straight to VOD picture. But I think it'll do well on streaming. I think it'll probably do better on streaming than it did on in the theaters, because it probably would have just came and went. And it has a bit of even the title "Shadow in the Cloud" is a little bit forgettable in terms of what happens in the movie. It's pretty generic, but overall, in terms of some of the positives about the movie, I want to definitely highlight Chloe Grace Moretz, the main actress. She's pretty much in the majority of the movie. This movie, I don't think it was shot during the current shutdowns and the current COVID situation. I think it was filmed earlier than that, but it seems like, they might have shot this movie knowing or having some idea that they didn't want to have a lot of the actors in close proximity. It is pretty much Chloe Grace Moretz in 80% of the movie without anyone else around her. So for that fact, her acting actually does hold up. She does perform pretty well, given that she's not, doing her performance off of anybody else or any other actors in the scene. A lot of times that can come off as pretty flat and pretty wooden. But for the most part, I thought she was good, and I thought the action scenes with her were well done. Obviously, she has experience from Kick-Ass, playing Hit Girl and stuff like that. So, if anything, I would say she should focus more on doing action type roles and heroine type roles and things versus Tom and Jerry or whatever she's got coming up next, or any of the kind of typical teen based romance movies and stuff like that. I know she's been in a bunch of those before, but I thought she pretty much pulled off the role. As I was saying before, it has good CGI and special effects for a straight to VOD flick. I would actually probably say that's the highlight of the movie, is the action scenes and the special effects. The story is not the best, and I'll get into some of the negatives in a bit, but for what it is, it's a fun matinee type of movie. If you like, kind of just a mindless action flick that you can put on and enjoy it, with the family. And I don't know if this is rated R or if it's rated PG-13 or whatever the equivalent is, but it is pretty brutal in some sense. There's actually enough bloody violence, swearing, and adult situations in the movie to remind you that you're probably not watching a PG-13 flick. So if you have kids, I don't know, again, that's up to you whether you want to let your kids watch it, but there is some blood and violence in it, some, brain matter splashing across the interior of the plane and whatnot. And, and it's got some monsters in it. So be ready for that. And a hell of a lot more F-bombs than I was expecting as well. So, take that for what it is. At first it seemed a little over the top, and I was like, to me, it seemed like they were pouring it on a little thick, but I think they're trying to distinguish this movie from the rest of the kind of straight to VOD stuff, where, it seems to be made more for an all ages type of scenario. And, this definitely is more of a, if not PG-13, definitely like a light R in terms of some of the stuff. Now, as far as negatives go, in the same way that, Chloe Grace Moretz is really good in the movie, the film kind of suffers from not seeing enough of the supporting cast until well into the movie. You're introduced to them early on, but then it's hard to tell who is who based on their names. You're not really seeing them when they're speaking. And then by the time they start getting picked off, because like any action movie or horror movie, people are going to die. So you don't end up really caring for them, maybe in the same way that you would had you gotten to know them better earlier on in the movie. But, again, it's also maybe not a pure negative, because it is kind of interesting just hearing them on the radio talking with her and her reacting to them in that sense. But so it kind of sets up the suspense and builds, toward a bit of a bigger payoff when you do finally get back into the plane and see what's going on. And this is probably going to start a trend of how to make more movies where the actors don't physically interact as much. Because like I said, for the most part, they're either completely individually separate in the movie for their scenes that are shot, or, very sparse, maybe 3 or 4 people in a scene together, and it's a very quick scene at that. Again, I don't know. I don't think this movie was shot around the time of COVID, but it definitely seems like, one of the first of the of this current trend that is probably going to happen, where, it'll be convenient to have the actors shoot their scenes on green screen or in a small space, keep them away from the other actors, and, not have to deal with the safety issues of the current situation. Another kind of negative was maybe some of the forced misogyny from the male characters. Seems like either the writer or director wanted Chloe Grace Moretz to be seen as a grown woman and have us forget her teenage starlet upbringing. So that is kind of getting more into the meat and potatoes of the story. I'm not going to give anything away, but you can definitely tell that they are hopeful that you'll forget that she was ever hit girl or played a teenage girl in any of her previous movies. They, basically try to age her up. And for the film being set during World War II in 1943, like, she does fit the role. I thought she was somewhat pretty believable in the role that she was playing. And then when I found out it was Max Landis writing the dialogue, or, I assume he wrote the dialogue being the writer of the movie, some of the over the top language and stuff kind of made sense, because he's kind of known for being a little more edgy than most writers. And they do lay it on thick pretty quick at the beginning of the film. And then, it kind of smooths out after that. It's not all the way through the movie. Again, it's kind of pushing the sexism of, the war effort in the 40s, but it does kind of come into play for the character and for the other characters in the movie later down the line. So, maybe not a huge negative, but just kind of one of those things that, made me kind of tweak my head a little bit. In terms of neutral stuff, that's kind of either both good and bad, or neither. I would say the soundtrack and the score was good, but the synthwave doesn't really fit the time period. So like a lot of these modern horror / mystery / sci-fi, they tend to have a bit of a synthwave feel to the soundtrack or to the score. And while the music pieces are good, they do take you out of the era of the film. But again, kind of a neutral, kind of a minor thing. It might have even seemed a little more out of place had they gone with music completely of that era. I don't know if that's possible in a modern movie. End of the movie is a little lackluster. It's, but at least it's not a downer, and it doesn't really set up a sequel. It has a definitive end. It just kind of comes quickly, and then the movie's over. And, so for some people that might be a positive. For other people, it might be a negative. For me, it's just kind of like a neutral aspect of the film. Not that the ending's bad by any stretch. It's just, again, kind of lackluster. it feels like they maybe could have added a little bit more to, have the climax be a little bit more, a little more fulfilling, basically. In terms of the twist in the movie, there is a big twist, and it really wasn't as shocking or unexpected as I thought it would be, but it actually ended up being the most believable part of the story. So in a lot of movies, the twist in the movie ends up being kind of the one thing that's maybe the least believable, or kind of something that you have to suspend your disbelief on. But in terms of this film, they did do a good job of just making it a very realistic, kind of prosaic twist that does make sense to the story. And it kind of actually, some of the other negatives or flaws or neutrals in the film do get raised, and the stakes get raised by that twist. So again, while it's not like the highlight of the movie, it's not like necessarily a positive, it's not a negative either. It's just kind of somewhere in the middle. I think take it as it comes. For a lot of people, they're going to either get different things out of it, or they're going to think it's completely cheesy. But for me, it was just kind of like, oh, I was expecting to go crazy with the twist, and it's just kind of something a little more expected, or a little more believable, I guess you could say. Now, in terms of so that's kind of will conclude my review of the movie. I would definitely recommend it. If I was going to give it any kind of score, I think in my notes I had given the script and performances, I gave a 5.5 out of 10. The CGI and effects, I gave 7.5 out of 10. And just the overall concept and execution, I gave a 6.5 out of 10. And so then that all basically averages it out to a 6.5 out of 10. So I think, very middle of the road, very kind of, lukewarm reception if you were to see that type of a review on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes or something like that. But considering I thought the movie was going to be a 3 or a 4 out of 10, then I was pleasantly surprised. Is this a movie I'm going to go and watch again right away? Probably not. I could probably go a year or two without watching this movie ever again, if ever again. But in terms of like, if you're looking for a new movie that's out right now, is it worth watching? I would say, yeah. If you watched Wonder Woman and you wasted 2.5 hours of your life on that movie, you should definitely watch this movie. I think it's only about an hour and a half or hour and 40 minutes. It's better than Wonder Woman. Now, again, that's just my own opinion. I know there's a lot of people out there that really liked Wonder Woman. But, I think like Chloe Moretz's character is a lot more believable and is put through some more, the action scenes have a little bit more gravitas and a little more grit in them. Whereas with Wonder Woman, with a straightforward superhero flick, you kind of know that there aren't any stakes. You know that it's all just going to magically fix itself and solve itself by the end of the movie. So I guess that kind of gets into the whole idea of why it feels like a comic book movie. And it was something that I didn't really think of before seeing the movie, but as it was playing, it kind of did run through my head that this kind of felt like an old style pulp war comic, something like a Weird War Tales or an Amazing Stories pulp novel. It has even though it has kind of the old school feel, it still has like a science fiction-y horror element to it, which is not too over the top. The creatures in the film are actually pretty well realized. The animation on them is really well done. They're not, it's like any good movie monster. They kind of keep them in the dark and the shadows at first, and then later on, as you get to see them, they lose a bit of their mystique, but they still seem very threatening. So, I thought, in terms of kind of a cool, pulpy horror sci-fi comic book kind of feel, definitely had that feel. Also, like I was saying earlier, it was written by Max Landis. He's done other comic book style concepts like Chronicle and Bright. So while those aren't directly related to a comic book adaptation, they definitely have kind of a comic book feel. And this film kind of fits right in that repertoire. But again, I think different people will have a different outlook on it. You could also say that maybe there's an element of the current superhero and comic book movie trend that is influencing it, which that would be valid. And I just think that, some of the over the top, action sequences and the premise itself lends itself to that, but it is kind of a fun movie. Again, I think if this came out in the theaters, this would have been like a good date movie, good kind of popcorn flick just to go and have fun and watch, not really think too hard about the story or anything like that. And there's really not a lot of story to get lost in. It's really just throwing these characters into a situation and watching how they persevere. So, in that sense, it's just kind of a thrill ride type of movie. And in terms of Chloe Moretz, her being just kind of a regular woman who has to rise to the challenge and become a hero. So very much in the vein of how, modern action movies now are kind of being subsumed by comic book and superhero movies, right? Where even just regular action stars are expected to be larger than life kind of comic book style heroes. Now, clearly, yeah, she's not a superhero or anything like that. Although some of the things that the character does in the movie, you would almost maybe you could almost maybe say that they are very superhero based. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through a couple screenshots here. I'm not going to like spoil anything. These are just a couple, select images from the film. And hopefully you guys can kind of see the bomber, the plane that they're on is really a cool set piece. It's the Fool's Errand. They make a point of, showing the nose art here early on, and really their mission ends up being the namesake of the plane. It is a Fool's Errand, and some of the kind of the establishing shots and things in the film are really well done. Again, I don't know how much of it is practical and how much of it is CGI. I would imagine a lot of it is CGI, but a lot of it is pretty seamless and very well done, and definitely builds up the atmosphere of the flick. Chloe Moretz, very early on in the movie, she gets stuck down in the gunner, in the belly gun on the ship, and kind of gets stuck in there for the first little bit of the movie. So it has a bit of a claustrophobic feel. It actually did kind of remind me of Alien and some of these other horror movies where the characters are stuck in a closet or stuck in a basement or stuck somewhere and can't really get out. And it has that claustrophobic feel, and she does a good job of selling it. The creatures are pretty cool. They are very bat-like, and if you've seen the trailer, they do show them in the trailer, so I don't think I'm spoiling anything by showing you a shot here on screen. But they're very naturalistic and very kind of something that you would expect, because it is a monster, but at the same time it does seem like a creature that could live somewhere in the South Pacific. And if you're familiar with the stories of the Gremlins during World War II, being a reason for servicemen to, be careful about maintenance on their planes and their weaponry and things like that, because the Gremlins would get into the mechanics and screw things up. Well, that they're just taking that premise as far as it can go and actually making these Gremlins, real world creatures. So I thought they were a good, little bit of now in terms of the action. Yes, there's some really over the top stuff where she's literally hanging out under the plane and, trying to navigate, through holes in the skin of the plane and get her, get the MacGuffin in the movie. But they were pretty well done. It's, aside from maybe a couple blue screen issues. They do sell it pretty well. It's not cut very quickly. It actually does, build some tension, and it's over the top, but it's fun nonetheless. And in terms of her acting, like, she definitely throws a lot of funny faces throughout the movie because she's being thrown into a lot of crazy scenarios. And so you see her, kind of freaking out and, basically really reacting realistically to a lot of the situations they're in. So again, I thought her performance was pretty good. And then in terms of the action, maybe one of the more unrealistic elements of the film is her going hand to hand with one of these creatures. But seeing as how she played Hit Girl, I'll give her a pass on that. And again, it's not a big part of the film, but one of those things where if you're looking for an extremely realistic flick, probably not gonna be your cup of tea. But if you just want kind of a fun action movie with a bit of a horror sci-fi angle to it, then I definitely recommend it, or at least it's a soft recommend. Again, you'll know if you enjoy these types of movies, then you'll know if it's up your alley or not. So yeah, that's pretty much my review and my overview of the Shadow in the Cloud film. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If I went on too long or gave away too much, just let me know. Put it down in the comments. I probably plan on doing this every week, like I said, so I don't want to, go too overboard. I know, like, people, you got EFAP where they'll go, obviously every frame of pause, they're going to literally give you 4 or 5 hours worth of analysis on something. But this movie doesn't deserve it in one sense, but it's also, like I said, the first week that it's out, so I'm not going to like spoil a ton of stuff with the movie. I could have gone on not just half an hour, but I could have done an hour if I got into spoiler territory. All right. So, what else is going on? So I can stop sharing that for now. Going to do a bit of a commercial here for a couple of projects. We've got a few Comicsgate campaigns on Indiegogo that are going to be ending pretty soon. So the first one I want to point out is The Buckler. And The Buckler is by John Dillard, and I believe it's ending in a couple of days. He's got 35 hours left. It is funded, so if anybody hasn't picked up The Buckler yet, I definitely recommend checking it out. I will go ahead and play the trailer here, and we can have a look at it. It's got a very cool kind of pulp noir.
Here, I'm going to tell you a story. A story you may not want to hear. A story that may hit too close to home. A story about a man who made the ultimate mistake. And a world that refused to give him a second chance. A story about the bastards that wanted him gone. And the love that he couldn't even contact. A story about the lengths a man will go to get back to the home he was forced to abandon. I want to tell you this story because you need to hear it. Because there's always a way back. But if you think it's going to be easy, you're wrong. And if you think you're ready for this story, you're not. Coming back is going to take everything that you don't want to give. And it's going to leave behind a trail of blood and bone. This is the story of The Buckler.
Very cool. That's one I'll definitely be backing. I was meaning to pick it up a little bit sooner, but I will be getting it here shortly. So I definitely recommend anybody out there that hasn't picked up The Buckler do so. It's actually a story about a villain, not a superhero. So, he kind of does whatever he wants and gets his way, and so happens to live in my hometown as well. So definitely got another reason to pick it up. So yeah, that's a good book to check out if you haven't already. And I will be popping links for all of these into the chat and also into the description on the video. So if you guys haven't had a look at it yet, then go ahead and check it out that way. All right, let's take a look at another one here. Let's see what else we got. Also, another one that's going to be ending pretty soon is Seasons from Nandor Fox Schaefer. And I think he's got 8 hours left. So if by the time you watch this, there's still some time to grab Seasons, Volume 1 and 2, definitely do that. Let's take a look at his video.
Hi, I'm comics creator Nandor Fox Schaefer, and I'm excited to finally bring Seasons to Indiegogo. Seasons is a 4-volume, grounded superhero supernatural graphic novel series that follows Fletcher through 1 year of his life, and with each passing season, Fletcher gains new powers and abilities that aid him on his journey towards a meaningful existence.
It's got some great art. Cool stuff. All right, he's a good guy. We had him on the open mic show on Richard's Forest Publishing channel maybe a month or so back. And really smart guy, really, really creative, and definitely knows where he's going with this story. So if you're interested in grabbing the first 2 volumes, those can be had. And likewise, he'll be doing more in the future with the story. So you don't have to worry about being left wanting more. It seems like he's going to be able to get all that stuff done. So here, I'll post that link in the chat. So if you guys are watching later, the live chat replay should also be live. All right. And an overlay's a little odd. Okay, so now we can take a look at issues. Let's make sure Mike and Snoot's their project gets some eyeballs on it as well. So Issues is in demand right now, and there's still quite a few tiers that are available, including some of the things like appearing in the comic and different character sketches, having your kids' art featured in the book, which is really unique, video chat. So, and Snoots' art on this campaign is pretty amazing for first time out on a comic book, or at least something of this of this stature. And I'm really looking forward to this campaign and this book. I don't think enough people are checking it out. I mean, it's more of a kind of, not a parody necessarily, I guess, but more of a bit of a funny take on superheroes and on some of the tropes that we've all come to learn through reading comics all through the years. So a lot of really cool variant covers and a lot of different perks. And yeah, if you guys haven't checked this campaign out, I definitely recommend it. I will play the video on here really quick too.
Hello? Yep, it's good. Flick. All right, it's working. We're doing a trailer for a comic? How does that work? All right, whatever. In a world marred by personal politics, where heroes have been reduced to a novelty, one team of superpowered misfits will set out to right the wrongs of their pasts, and once again remind the world what it truly means to be a hero. A young special agent assigned to investigate a god searching for the truth of her father's death. The hell's going on here? The most powerful being ever known, hoping to regain the trust of the country he loves, accused of murder. Best friends trying to maintain a sense of justice under the eye of an easily manipulated public. Cavalier twins trying to honor the legacy of their fallen parents. ... and a monkey. The hell is this garbage? Issues, Volume 1, only on Indiegogo. Nailed it.
Mos Def. It's another book I'm really looking forward to. So hopefully you guys will check that out. And again, I will pop the link for that in the chat, and I should have all these links in the description later. And then last one we'll look at is Melvin. So a friend of the show, Tim Olson, has his campaign, Melvin #1, live right now. And he's been up for maybe 3 or 4 days now, I think, since the first. And so he's definitely looking for some more backers. And this is one of the best deals in Comicsgate right now. You can get a digital PDF of the book, and then he's got 3 covers he's doing. The original cover, that's a concept that Tim did, but it's going to be a Vic King cover. And he'll be highlighting that and showing that off pretty soon. The Rob Ewing cover and the Sherwin Sains cover. Sherwin does the interior art. He's posted some of the black and white pages up here, and I know he has a stretch goal of getting the book colored in the future if it so warrants, if he manages to hit his goal and hit what he needs for the stretch. And he's kind of doing it in old school style, kind of more flat colors, like something like a comic from the 70s or 80s. And then likewise, if you want to get all 3 covers, the original and then the alt covers 1 and 2, $20 US for 3 covers, or $10 each. So you're getting pretty much a good deal if you're planning on picking all 3 up. And I'm gonna have to talk to him and maybe see if he'll make that the featured perk, because I think he should put that as the featured perk, and he'll get more people backing that by seeing it a little bit higher up. And we will play his video. think he's got another trailer coming soon too, so keep an eye out for that. So yeah.
Order now and get the beautiful set of stainless steel steak knives and the miracle paring knives absolutely free!
Make sure you get out there and order these books, people. There's a lot of good stuff out there, I know, but we got to support some of the smaller people in Comicsgate and in the indie comic scene. So I hope all those guys are successful. It looks like a lot of them have already, made their goal and whatnot. But for anybody out there that's still hoping to hit their goal, then we got to help them out and, get ourselves a good book in the process and kind of go from there. And hopefully they'll keep putting books out in the future. That's what this is all about. It's just about helping people make their dreams come true and get into the comic world and be able to do something that they never thought they could be a part of, especially with the way that the mainstream industry is going. It's been such a gate kept industry for so long, but now with this new online indie scene and the Indiegogo movement and Comicsgate movement, it's getting a lot easier for anybody out there to be able to make their dreams come true and be able to make a comic. So what can we do now? So I think I'll keep going for a little bit here. I'm going to see if I can find a couple people to bring on the show. Let me stop my screen for a minute here. All right. Always a bit of a hit or miss if you're trying to get some people on a live stream, because there's usually a lot of different live streams running at the time. So we'll see if anybody notices. And all right, let's switch over to some other stuff here. I'm going to pull up some bounding into comics and see what articles we can look at today. All right, so we've always got a lot of interesting news and articles coming out of Bounding into Comics. So if you guys, I'm sure everybody that's watching is familiar, but if you're not, I definitely recommend bouncing over to Bounding into Comics from time to time. They always cover whatever the latest is going on. We got some interesting stuff here. Let's peruse. We got a rumor: Ben Affleck to return as Batman in World's Finest movie alongside Henry Cavill's Superman. I mean, maybe that would have just been something they could have started with instead of Batman v Superman. I mean, that might have, maybe have them actually be friends at first before they fight. But, whatever, I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get. a lot of people are completely tuned out of the superhero movies and they don't really care at this point. I mean, I'm still interested. I still, get some, I still have some fun with them. I don't really analyze them maybe as deeply as other people do, or don't have quite the high expectations a lot of other people do, but I'm willing to give everything a chance. So, and I thought, Cavill did well as Superman. Maybe Man of Steel was not the best Superman movie to introduce his version of the character for people, but I thought he did a good job. And likewise with Ben Affleck as Batman. We got another rumor here, The Flash to retcon Wonder Woman with appearance of Chris Pine as Steve Trevor. I don't know what I think of that. I mean, the way they brought him back in Wonder Woman 84 was very unimaginative. And if you're doing a wish fulfillment or a monkey's paw type movie where you can just pretty much make any wish come true, and have giant walls appearing out of nowhere and stuff, I don't know why Chris Pine had to, pop up into the body of some other person, but what do I know? Another rumor, Patty Jenkins actively scrubbed Wonder Woman 84 from Zack Snyder's influence. Another rumor, Batman star Robert Pattinson frustrated with director Matt Reeves. Patty Jenkins responds to Wonder Woman 84 sexual assault accusations. Let me guess, that has something to do with the body switching. Yes. Yeah, I had a feeling. So, there's all sorts of SJWs out there that are going to freak out about this stuff. Another thing that came out today was this High Republic launch out of Star Wars, which I didn't really watch. I caught maybe 5 minutes of it and then turned it off. It didn't really look that interesting. I think I'll probably go back at some point and just see what are the highlights or what the main gist of it is. But, I'm kind of not really plugged into this if it's not part of the movies or TV shows, if it's just something that they're doing through books and comics. At the end of the day, it's not really going to have a ton of meaning on the canon. Eventually, they may adapt some of this stuff into live action, but I just don't think this is going to be, anything that they're pinning their hopes and dreams on for the future of Star Wars. I think it's just more something to fill time and space until they get their other TV shows out there. And of course, everybody's really excited about the return of Luke Skywalker on The Mandalorian. So I think, most of the people in control of the TV shows and the movies are going to be looking at those types of elements for the future. What characters can we bring back? What characters should we focus on? Not so much new stuff that isn't tried and true, that doesn't have the fan base built in already. Because, clearly they do want to spread out and make some new fans, but at the same time they're really trying to cater to their to their fan base that's been with them for over, well, I guess 40 years now, right? More than 40 years. So I really don't have high hopes for High Republic, no pun intended. And we've got some rumors about Iron Man actor Robert Downey Jr. in discussions for possible Star Wars villain role in Mandalorian. Okay, that's interesting. Again, a lot of these rumors get started and I don't know how much to believe it. I usually take them mostly with a grain of salt because a lot of times they end up just kind of falling by the wayside, and they're, once enough people start talking about it, you then learn, okay, yeah, this is true because there's enough websites and enough people in the know talking about it. But when it's just like that one initial report from the one insider, I'm not as, likely to believe it at that point. It would make sense though, seeing as how, Downey Jr. and Favreau have worked together on the Iron Man films. So it says here they're in discussions to work on a new project together, and that the project more than likely is Mandalorian. Following the scoop, another rumor, this one from WDW Pro. Isn't that Walt Disney World Pro at Pirates and Princesses claims the discussions with Downey Jr. are indeed for a Star Wars project set during the Mandalorian timeline. They refer to this as the Favreau-Filoni Star Wars Cinematic Universe. It seems that the discussions are for a significant recurring role and are not of a cameo nature and may involve a long-term contract. Even details that it might involve a serious change in appearance. As for who that someone might be, WDW Pro did speculate it could be someone like Grand Admiral Thrawn. It would not shock us at this point if RDJ takes a role like Grand Admiral Thrawn or some other major piece. That's actually an interesting, concept of having him play Thrawn, because there's been so many other actors that have been, either typecast in that role, whether it's, Benedict Cumberbatch or, some of the, even the guy that played him did the voice on Rebels, shares a likeness. But, I think RDJ is good enough that he could probably pull it off. And, if they do a good makeup job, that will go a long way as well. What's really interesting about the rumor is that it comes off a recent rumor that Mandalorian executive producers Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are looking to build up a possible live-action adaptation of Timothy Zahn's Heir to the Empire novel. In that novel, Thrawn is first introduced as a cunning and formidable foe who has united the scattered Imperial forces and begun to implement his master plan to utterly crush and defeat the Rebel Alliance once and for all, a feat even the Emperor was unable to do. Yeah, if you haven't read the novels, I definitely recommend that trilogy of novels. The comic adaptations are pretty decent. That's what a lot of these images are coming from. But, where that would fit in the timeline, whether that's some sort of retconning on Filoni and Favreau's part, or if they're going to try to just fit it in as a side adventure / mission, with the First Order still coming to fruition and the Disney trilogy still being a thing. I mean, I guess it could go either way. I wouldn't really expect I wouldn't expect them to knock over the apple cart too much. I think all these rumors of them retconning the sequel trilogy are a little, that's wishful thinking at this point, even though they did bring back Luke and gave him his grand entrance and action scene that he was missing in The Last Jedi and in the sequel trilogy at large. I don't know if it's going to happen, that they'll rewrite, the entire story of the sequel trilogies. There was just too much money and effort and, brain cells put into that. And there's a huge kind of newer segment of the fan base that would revolt if they decided to do something like that, or just make it an alternate timeline. I think if anything, they're going to have to be creative and try to fit it in, with whatever stories take place before that time period. They're just going to have to play loosely with the time and, just pretend like it's all going to eventually happen. They just can't contradict anything that took place in the later movies. And yeah, so it talks about the book introducing a number of other fan favorite characters like Mara Jade, Jedi Master Joruus C'baoth, Imperial Captain Gilad Pellaeon, Thrawn's personal bodyguard Rook, smuggler Talon Card, and the fearsome alien species known as the Nagri. What do you make of the rumor? Who do you think he could play? Yeah, I think that's an interesting rumor, to say the least. A lot of the news sites talking about Jodie Whittaker exiting Doctor Who. I think that's pretty much a given, considering, how really your diehard Doctor Who fans really aren't a big fan of her. And I don't think it's an issue with the Doctor being female, although I tend to believe that, I'm trying to remember who said it. Maybe it was Az from Heel versus Babyface, when he was talking about how and I could be wrong, but he had mentioned that the Doctor being this male character, yet being an alien character, and then the companions of the Doctor always being women. Really, the character that the viewers are seeing Doctor Who through is the companion, is the female character. So kind of in a sense, almost the main character in Doctor Who has always been female all along. and because that's how you learn the world of the Time Lords and, you know, this odd Gallifreyan, you know, time traveler and shapeshifter that Doctor Who is. He's not really meant to be the character that the viewer identifies with. So now, as soon as you turn Doctor Who into a woman and, you know, give her a bunch of forgettable companions that aren't really, you know, and I haven't even really watched the new Jodie Whittaker incarnation of Doctor Who, but just from the clips I've seen, it just seems like very forgettable and very, you know, almost like she doesn't want to be playing the role right from the beginning. So, and I'm more of a classic Doctor Who fan. I have watched some of the newer stuff, but the kind of the old school 70s and 80s Doctor Who is my heyday. That's when I got into it. And if I'm going to go back and watch Doctor Who, it's usually that old stuff. What else do we got here? Oh, we got rumors about Lando. Again, a series probably not a lot of people are expecting or want, but I didn't hate Solo. It was pretty middle of the road, but I was kind of a little disappointed that we weren't going to get more out of the Solo film in terms of a sequel or a series afterward, especially the way it sets up Darth Maul at the end. I thought Emilia Clarke's character, the Kira character, was pretty well done and pretty interesting, and I wanted to see more of her. The actor playing Han Solo left a little bit to be desired, but I thought he, you know, given what he had to work with, I thought he did okay. And in some sense, I think probably Dong Lover was the kind of the highlight of the movie, even though, you know, his character took on such a weird nature with the whole focus on, oh, he's pansexual and he is having a romance with his droid and stuff like that. Like, I don't know, it could have been done better. I mean, I could have seen him being more of a ladies' man with a whole bunch of, you know, sexy alien chicks rather than a droid, but okay, whatever. But the character Lando definitely has a lot of potential to explore, whether it's, you know, from the old novels. There were some Lando novels that they could dig into, and just his, you know, flamboyant character. I mean, there's not really any situation you couldn't throw him into and have him play off of it. And I think some of the rumors too are that, you know, they may get Donald Glover to play the young version and then get the why can't I think of his name right now? It's not coming to my mind. Yeah, and have the original actor play him, Billy D. Williams. Jeez, why did that slip my mind? You know, like kind of like they did on the young Indiana Jones TV series, where you had, you know, kind of an older Indiana Jones introduce the adventures in the episodes, or if they could just do flashbacks and things like that, and actually give Billy D something to do in the show, that could be interesting. I'm willing to check it out. You know, again, with all this Star Wars stuff, most of it's going to get lost in the shuffle. I think the main problem they're going to have is the competing with themselves. They're going to have too many Star Wars products coming out at once, and then people aren't really going to, you know, they're not going to know what to watch or what they should watch. So and Galaxy's Edge, rumor Disney to replace Star Wars sequel trilogy characters in Galaxy's Edge. That should be a no-brainer. Considering, you know, well, again, it depends on if these theme parks really open up to the same degree that they were open beforehand, right? Like, are we just going to be living in this kind of post-COVID world where we constantly wonder if things are ever going to get back to normal, or are we actually going to push and strive to get back to normal? Because there's going to be a lot of businesses and a lot of, you know, all these different theme parks and amusement parks and movie theaters, like that's pretty much what they live off of, right? Is people being able to get out of the house and go do something and spend money. But there's not much reason to have a theme park if people are stuck indoors for the next 10 years. So hopefully they, manage to figure that out.
Germs! Germs that can cause colds, bad breath, diarrhea. Germs that can flourish in your family bathroom.
It's all about the germs. Got to get rid of the germs. Got to be scared of germs. Well, I'll figure it out. I'm still somewhat positive and still somewhat optimistic about this situation. I don't know if I'm going to pin it all on a medical miracle, but I think eventually it's just things will fade back to normal, irregardless of the amount of strain that they put on people's businesses and on their daily lives. I think people are just going to get sick of it at a certain point. They're just going to start acting normal again, whether the powers that be want them to or not, because people are, I don't think people can take it for too much longer. And people want to go to the movie theaters. They want to go to theme parks. They want to have fun. They want to, interact with people. And I think, whether you believe herd immunity is a thing or whatnot, it's going to, people are eventually going to just start acting like it's a thing, and they'll worry about the consequences later. It looks like, they're going to have to tweak a lot of the animatronics. They're going to have to tweak all of the, the day players, the actors that are portraying these characters in the park. And I don't think they necessarily need to kick out all of the sequel trilogy characters. They can have them, it's not like they have to keep some sort of timeline working or anything like that. I think they could, kind of have these characters interacting, even though they're not from the same time period. When you're at a theme park, you don't really care. It's just like when you go to the Disney park, like you're seeing a bunch of animated characters interacting with each other that were never in the movies together. So it doesn't really kill my suspension of disbelief. I know if I'm in the Galaxy's Edge theme park, I know it's not real Star Wars. I know it's not an actual part of the storyline, so I don't need to take it that seriously. And plus they can sell more Baby Yoda, Grogu dolls, and have Luke Skywalker running around and stuff. All right, so we got the basic run-of-the-mill rumors here on Bounding into Comics. Very interesting. I just don't know if most of these, issues with comic book movies and movies in general, I don't know if they're going to rectify the situation before 2021 is up. I think we might be kind of stuck in this holding pattern for a little while longer, but we'll see. Like I was saying earlier with the review on Shadow in the Cloud, like it does seem like they're going to do more, not expansive, but more, movies that have a higher budget, have a little bit more special effects, a little more action. And I'm certain that movie was destined to come out in the theaters originally, but now they realize they may as well cut their losses and, put it straight out on VOD. And that idea of putting a movie on streaming and in the theater at the same time, even though Wonder Woman hasn't been entirely successful with it, I think you'll see that more for the bigger budget films or the more tentpole blockbuster films. But it'll be a way for the smaller films that might have just lost, people would have lost interest after the first weekend in the theaters. They're going to have a better life of their own on VOD. So I guess we'll see what happens. All right. So I think I might call it there. We've been going for over an hour now. So I want to thank everybody that's watching the video now, whether it's live or after the fact. If you want to like and subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate that. I'm trying to build up my subscriber base. The next week, I don't know what movie I'll be reviewing, but if you want to come back next Monday, I'll have another movie review. I might try to trim them down to like, 10 or 15 minutes at the most, rather than going half an hour. That way I can cut it into a shorter video. But we'll see. If people like this, I'll keep going. And if we get more, get some guests on the show, we can make a bit more of an outing about it and just, go on about the movie for a good hour or so. And then on Wednesdays, I'm going to stream as well. So coming up this Wednesday, I think I'm going to call it Weird Wednesdays. And we'll just get into kind of like the stranger topics, whether it's, paranormal stuff, UFO news, conspiracy concepts and questions. Maybe I'll be able to get an Illuminati tag on the video at some point. But, just kind of talk, and it could be wacky stuff. It could be like, weird news, the type of stuff you would see in Bizarre Magazine. And, there's always like something crazy going on. There's always like people, giving themselves a Darwin Award by having them, killing themselves or dying in some strange, weird way, or dumb way, I guess you could say. So, we'll see what kind of news stories and what kind of interesting, weird, wacky stuff is going on in the world on Wednesdays, and make that a thing each week. And then on Fridays for the near term will be kind of the open mic night, where we will be having, different guests promoting their comic books, promoting their Indiegogo campaigns, talking about comic news, talking about comic skate issues and strategies, and just having fun and having a couple drinks and chilling out on a Friday night. I do want to mention, if you haven't visited the Forest Publishing channel, which is Richard Embry's channel, who is the writer and creator of The Last Goodbye, definitely visit his channel. I will pop it in the description after the fact, but his channel is down for the near future. So we will be hosting kind of the same, motley crew of characters here on my channel, and help, hopefully get my subscriber base built up a little more. And then once he gets his streaming permission back, he'll kind of get back to normal on his channel. And I think also with his current situation with school, he wants to focus on that for the next couple months here as well. So that might end up being a blessing in disguise. But that's neither here nor there. Again, I want to thank everybody for watching the video, and please come back for more. And we'll just do a quick little musical interlude here.
Yeah, I keep my pen strong.
Oh my God. I just don't give a fuck.
Peace.